First, I want to thank Paul for inviting me and for all of you and to have shared this meal with you. As I mentioned in the homily, I've been the bishop of the Diocese of Spokane since late May, and previous to that I was auxiliary bishop in the Diocese of San Jose in California. And that was for 4 years. I was the first auxiliary. San Jose was a part of one time. How many here have been to Santa Clara County before? San Jose. So it was part of, it was an agricultural county primarily, but now it's known for Silicon Valley. And but previous to that, I was a priest of the Archdiocese of San Francisco. So I actually was born and raised. I'm one of 7 kids, number 4 of 7, and we all grew up, went to Catholic schools in San Francisco. My great-grandfather was born in San Francisco. So I still have nieces and nephews in the Catholic, and one of them in my home parish, St. Brennan's. I was able to confirm one of my nephews last November. He had all my nieces and nephews' first communions, and my last nephew, Brendan, is making first communion in May, and rearranged my schedule to be able to be there for that. So I was a priest. I went to Catholic grade school, went to boys' high school, Daly South Christian Brothers, USF, which is Jesuit College, and went to seminary after that. I originally thought about, I thought a little bit about priesthood when I was in grade school. I can tell you, I'm asked, because I spent, before being a bishop, I was 9 years the director of vocations. I worked with a young man who might explore possibly a priestly call, and I was director of seminarians. I'm very proud of the fact that the high school I was president of now has its one guy ordained a priest, 4 in formation, and another guy preparing to enter, which is a great gift. It's Marin County's kind of nicer area, across the Golden Gate Bridge, very beautiful area. As I said, it's easy when you're in beautiful areas to worship the Creator and not the creation and not the Creator, which is what the same thing with Washington State. There's beauty here, and so people tend to forget about the Creator. But in any case, I was assigned into, well, I'll back up. So a priest in the parish when I was growing up, who's still alive, he's retired, had great influence on me, and I remember for the longest time, we were in 5th grade, and we just learned under the altar boys. In that case, it was just, those days, just boys serving. This was the early 70s. And our teacher, Sister Mary Agnes, asked us to draw what we wanted to be, like a triptych, 3 things. And my friend next to me was a guy named Ray Cedino. His folks, he was of Mexican background. His mom was born in Mexico, his dad was born in San Francisco. And we were sitting right there, and I put, well, I see him drawing. And so he draws. Everyone was, we draw a baseball player, we both did that. FBI agents were big things then, because so we put FBI, and then I know that I put businessman. My father was a businessman, and he puts priest. I remember asking him there in that 5th grade, why would you want to be a priest? Because I don't know, I want to help people. And so I can remember that not ever entering my mind. I also remember that with my older brother and my cousins, 4 out of my 6 cousins, we all grew up about a block from each other. We were all altar boys, we all served. Remember, they'd ask us in the summertime, tell us when you're on vacation so we can sign up for a certain schedule. And I can remember us always saying to our mothers, my mom and their mom, the twins, tell them we're gone the whole summer. We don't want to put ourselves out. No, you only go 1 week in June and 1 week in August. So again, no thought of priesthood. Well, this one particular summer, going to the 8th grade, this priest, Father Mike Burns, we moved, because they were painting the inside of the church, they moved to the convent chapel. And it was a newer convent, it was built in it was only less than 10 years old, and they said, you know, it's a weekday mass. Imagine this, it's a weekday mass in the summer at 5:30. And they were expecting 2 servers. You can't get sometimes kids on Sundays. And he said, only one of you is needed. So, and for some reason, to this day, I said yes. And I think when you are asked to make a big yes to the Lord, to give your life, you have to start with a small yes. And I still don't know why I said it, but I said yes. And from that point on, Mass took on a different, we always want to, I mean, not always together as a family. My father might take some of us earlier, but we always went to Mass. And I think that was the stirrings first of the vocation. I went on to high school, typical high school with all that high school's about, and then in college, and I was a pre-law major. So I kind of thought that's what I would be, a lawyer, not a lawyer going around suing people for falling on sidewalks. Probably like a U.S. attorney or something like that. And I thought, I would be married and have a family. I mean, that just seemed to me what would be fulfilling. And I remember this particular senior year, I was dating this girl, and she got one of the girls' high schools in San Francisco. We met each other in college, and she was going to Europe to study for a year to be a Montessori teacher. So I remember talking to a priest who said, well, why don't you nothing's worse than not trying something when you're given the opportunity. And seminary comes from the Latin word for seed bed. As you well know, not all seeds go into crops, germinate. So it seemed to be kind of God had opened up an opportunity for me. I could defer which by the way was applied to two law schools, USF's law school and Gonzaga's. And I could defer law school for a year. It just seemed to be God opened the door for me to the seminary. So the first year I didn't like the seminary, but went back a second year and ended up being very good. And 4 years in theology, 1 year as a deacon in a parish, and I was ordained. And I was assigned to a big suburban parish in the tip of Marin County across the Golden Gate Bridge. The next county over is Sonoma, which is kind of known even before Walla Walla as a big wine area. And I was assigned there, and then I was asked by our Archbishop to go to teach high school. So I did that. And after a year teaching high school, a very challenging first year, another priest was president. I was sent on to graduate school in Boston College for education and administration. So I did that, and that began 19 years at the high school. But after 3.5 years, I was asked to be a pastor of 2 little small churches, country churches, similar to what I see when I visit parts of this diocese. One was in the redwood trees, beautiful. Kind of a little fringe of hippies, The other one was a ranching parish that was dated back to 1863. A little white clapboard church right in the middle with a fence around it and the cows raised up to it. That was only an hour from San Francisco, but it was a half hour from the high school. So it was almost 2 different worlds. So I did that for 4 years, still at the high school. And the Archbishop, Levade at the time, different Archbishop, came in and he said, I want to appoint you vocation director. And so he says, I want you to leave the high school. And I said, well, we start school next week. I'm teaching 2 senior classes. Okay, well, you'll leave it the semester. Well, that kind of, a little bit of bartering went on for that period of time. And I did that, and then I was appointed to be also a priest for St. Vincent's School for Boys, which is a historic place founded for the orphans of the gold rush. We had Mass on Sunday, a beautiful Spanish colonial church set on 500 acres, and it had kids. At one time it had been a school of about 500 boys, orphans of the gold rush, and then cholera epidemic. And now it was about 65 kids who had to be taken from their families because of abuse and neglect, and they lived at St. Vincent's. And it was a stark contrast between high school kids, middle-class high school kids, and kids who really sometimes didn't know their fathers, or they had been just neglect. So I did that, plus vocations high school, and then he appointed me president, and then he got named to follow Pope Benedict when Benedict was elevated to be the Pope from Cardinal Ratzinger. Levada left to Rome, and a new archbishop came in who had come out of Salt Lake, but he is an LA priest. As long as you work and were happy, he was fine with that. And so that's what I did. So I had a variety of experiences until I got this call around this time 5 years ago. I was at the seminary for a meeting because of my role as vocation director, and the vocation director for the Diocese of San Jose says there's a phone call for you. So I pick up the phone, and the secretary of the Archbishop says, the nuncio, that is the Vatican ambassador, is calling for you. So as I tell this story, when the Vatican ambassador called the nuncio phones, he's not asking your opinion on, are the Warriors going to do well this season, or what do you think about the wheat crops of Eastern Washington? None of that. He's asking you. Yes. So I go back, I say a prayer in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel, go out to the baseball field, the seminary where I went, a cold February day, I call him, and it was Archbishop Sombi. And Sombi, obviously, is Italian, and he has, I said, Archbishop, this is Father Daly from the Archdiocese of San Francisco, I'm calling you. Oh, yes, yes. And I hear this rustling of papers. These must be phoning other men to be bishops. And he said, the Holy Father would like to appoint you the auxiliary bishop for the Diocese of San Jose in California. Do you accept? Now, usually when you're an assistant bishop, you are made assistant in your own diocese, in this case San Francisco. But it was new to go to San Jose, because we had thought that it would be maybe a bishop from a different ethnic group, it might have been someone of religious order, but not a priest from San Francisco. So he says, do you accept? And I said, well, I don't know, I guess so, yes, because I thought you had time to talk to your spiritual director. So he says, he sensed the hesitation, he says, well, Father, let me tell you, I worked in the Holy Land when I worked in the nuncio's office, and many a day I walked the shores of the Sea of Galilee, just the same place Jesus walked. And that is where Jesus called those first apostles, and they left everything to follow him. You must do the same. This call's confidential, and he hung up on me. So, can't say anything. So, in any case, then unraveled, so I had to wrap up the high school, wrap up vocations, wrap up St. Vincent's School for Boys. I was ordained in late May of 2011. We came down to a diocese that I knew very little about. And then I spent 4 years there. One of those years, the third year, I became rector of the seminary, St. Patrick's, which is where I had gone. And that was a great experience to do that. When I was a pastor last year for 2 churches till I got another call in February. This time it's from Archbishop Vigano, who also is from Italian, and he's Italy. He says the Holy Father would like to appoint you the Bishop of Spokane, as they called it, and you accept. And I said, yes, I do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I guess, I don't know if someone called and they said no, but, and so he said, I will make the phone calls. He said, please, Archbishop, I'm leaving for retreat today. Don't say anything. That's okay. Call me in about 2 weeks. So that's what he did, and then I was installed, and that's why I'm here. And so it's been a great blessing. Let's see. Maybe, what should I talk about first of all? That was my background.
So what's the, Bishop, this might be helpful,
Yeah.
is what, so we just, remember at Mass we celebrated the chair of St. Peter, okay? What's the correlation between the chair and the apostles and
Sure.
yourself? I think it's good.
Yeah, we talk about bishops are successors to the apostles. Now that sounds very impressive, and on one level it should, but it's also very humbling because, as you know, the apostles, just what a great gospel to come and talk about being a bishop. James and John became bishops. And here they are looking for greatness. Peter, talks big and then delivers only when it's convenient for him. And they all run and hide. And so a good bishop never forgets the example of the apostles. The fact that they needed always to depend on Christ, that they were called to do something with a mixed sense of personal gifts and talents. As St. Paul says, all that we have we receive, and that's truly, an example of being a successor of the apostles is I'm responsible for all of you. Now, whether you guys live outside the boundaries of Spokane Diocese, while you're students here in Catholics, you're part of my flock. And it's my responsibility, my vocation to pray for you, though I just met you, to pray collectively for you. And so the apostles, the first thing is we have to keep in mind, they were martyred, as I mentioned, all but John, martyred for the faith. And they went out and proclaimed the gospel with all their strengths and weaknesses. And so the chair of St. Peter, which was the feast we celebrated on the 22nd, is meant to honor the chair of Peter, not so much who sits in it. In this case, Francis today, Benedict before that, St. John Paul before that. It's that it's the office of a bishop, the vicar of Christ. Not the successor of Christ, the vicar of Christ. And it's very humbling as a bishop, because as I said, I didn't think I'd be a bishop. I did. Now some guys, not to scandalize you, some priests who think that they could be bishops, and Father Paul and I talked about that, easy with that son. But the chair of Peter is meant the office of a bishop. So the role of a bishop, and I've been speaking about this, and I don't know if this was talked about much by my predecessors, is to teach, govern, and sanctify. That's the role. That's what a bishop. That's the role of a bishop, to teach the truths of the faith. And since I spent 19 years in high school dealing with younger people, a few years younger than you, knowing the struggles and the questions and doubts, which is great. When it comes to your thoughts about your faith, there's two phrases from the fourth Eucharistic prayer. You often don't hear the fourth Eucharistic prayer, but if you pull a missalette out, if you pull a missal, you read it. It has to be prayed with the preface. The Lord be with you, lift up your hearts. That leads to the preface. Then we do the Holy, Holy, then we go into the Eucharistic prayer. Well, Eucharistic prayer 4 is to be read with this one preface and this one Eucharistic prayer. We have options for the prayer. But if you look at the fourth Eucharistic prayer, there's two lines that are very important, I think, for people struggling to believe or trying to believe, or just who are very gifted with faith, but just don't stay on the right path. It's the phrase, all who seek you with a sincere heart, and all those whose faith is known to you alone. That's the prayer of the priest praying to the Father. All who seek you with a sincere heart, and all those whose faith is known to you alone. So my role as a bishop to teach, govern, and sanctify is not that I'm the best of teachers. It's just like any good father who loves his children, you want them to know right from wrong, and especially you want them to know of a God who gave us his only Son. Govern is the administration of the diocese. Some archdioceses are very large. Los Angeles is the largest archdiocese. There might be something like masses in 42 languages throughout those 3 counties of Los Angeles. But other archdioceses are smaller. San Francisco is 3 counties: Marin, San Francisco City County, and San Mateo. Kind of like a cigar shape, 1,000 square miles. The water on the Ocean Pacific on the west, and the bay on the east, and the mountains. San Jose was like a big plop. It was a big rural area there in one county. But this diocese is 24,000 square miles. So it's a lot to do, a lot of driving. That's one of the questions there. So govern, I have to administer the diocese. I reorganize the diocese. I have 3 priests who assist me, Father Connell, Father Nee, and Father Kurtz, who are vicars. And then, of course, priests such as Father Paul, who ministers in St. Rose at the Newman Center, lay people, sisters, and sanctify. That's the call to holiness. Salvation of souls. And I said, at the high school, our job is to get your kid into heaven, but we better get him into a good college before that. So, sanctification. Together we grow in holiness. When you're living your God, trying to live your faith, you're praying, you're going to Mass, the sacraments, you're trying to live a good life pleasing to God, that is sanctifying to the community, it's sanctifying to me. And as I lead you and guide you, I'm hoping that you'll grow in sanctification. It's also very important in the year of mercy that we have opportunities for people. We have 2 priests who are called missionaries of mercy. They were just in Rome. They're sent out now to provide. One's a retired priest. One is a priest, Father Barnett, who was down in Pasco. The retired priest is Monsignor Pearson. It's an opportunity, I think, as we grow in holiness when we try to avoid sin. We grow in holiness when we try to do good things for other people, when we're charitable. Remember, greatness is not about lording it over. Let's see. I placed a big priority on our faith formation of our young people because the diocese, as you know, or some of you know, was bankrupt for quite a while, and a lot of programs were dropped, and it seems the faith formation of our young people is a priority, and it should be a priority, and I take it very seriously. But I can't neglect. Catholic Charities does extensive work with people who are at risk, people who don't have homes and housing. So we have to, a bishop is like a dad who works 2 jobs. No one's ever completely happy. But you do it, why? You do it because you love the family you That is your family, and you do it because God has called you, and He will give you the grace and the strength. And I continue to feel so blessed by the Lord and what He's given me is strength and grace.